Women's psychology leads to the complete, total degradation of the woman's personality. We often hear from female psychologists, love yourself, forgive yourself, accept yourself, and it sounds, yes, it seems kind of good. But if a woman listens to this, soon her husband's behaviour will start to hurt her, annoy her, offend her. Why? Because a guy in thick glasses told her that your wife deserves the best. And after this phrase, 100 complaints immediately arise in her head toward her husband. Because if I'm a queen, where's my palace and servants? Well, yes, she might think about something probably more modest, but still, you get the principle. This is the direct and shortest path to devaluing everything that is in your life right now. Imagine that every day I eat buckwheat with eggs, and suddenly a psychologist share a video or a book tells me, man, you deserve the best. Think, really think, what do you want? I want lobsters and a fatty steak every day. Does that mean I deserve it? Well, that's it. If I believe it from that day, I will just flip the plate with buckwheat on the kitchen floor and look at my wife as a traitor who has been feeding me tasteless, bland food all my life. And you know what I should really think about at that moment? That I might not even have that buckwheat, that maybe I don't even deserve to eat buckwheat. A scenario where I wouldn't even have this buckwheat in my kitchen, and it wouldn't even exist in my life. Thank God that once again it is on my table. I'm glad that I have a wife who lovingly prepared it for me, and when I think this way, I am filled with gratitude. But when people tell me and insist that I deserve the absolute best, it creates a feeling of deficiency, and a little later, unhappiness. You can open any article. An enlightened woman is not dependent on external evaluations on this topic on the internet, and there it says absolute nonsense. For example, love for oneself is when we are not dependent on external evaluations, so the husband no longer has the option of giving his wife negative feedback. The enlightened woman cancels the husband, always independent. Well then, it even says that you need to accept yourself in all your manifestations, even the negative ones. Only what we are witnessing is that the husband has lost the hope of his beloved wife improving for the better. Why change yourself if you can just accept it? It's easier, it's just genius. Well, if a man dares to point out these female mistakes, then they will just say, accept me as I am. But in real life, in a person's life, there was never a plot where even his parents killed him for just being. You can skip school, be a poor student, study poorly, but parents won't be happy. Well, I would be curious to conduct such an experiment. Let this beautiful, luxurious, busty psychologist in glasses who talks about loving yourself have a stinky, smelly bum come to her. Just let him reek of urine. Just, for the sake of an experiment, send such a person and he would say, I watched one of your videos and it says that people should love others just as they are. Can someone love me like this? I like you, for example. Meanwhile, the office smells like something rotten. What do you think this meeting is most likely to end up like? Therefore, when a woman runs out of arguments or she's just too lazy to come up with any, she might say this phrase, love me as I am. Or do you only love me for something? Well, damn, mercantile psychology in general, very psychology does not like when actions are evaluated. It likes when actions are evaluated. Well, you're probably aware that in psychology as such, good and evil, right and wrong, well, it doesn't exist. You, for example, are not allowed to tell your wife that she acted unattractively or poorly. Also, psychology is categorically against the idea that respect should be earned. No, you're automatically already very cool, and any complaints in psychology are already a swear word. Yes, the main thing is that psychology, as it were, forbids anything to be done by anyone if they don't want to do it. If your wife doesn't want to wash the dishes, then she doesn't have to. But if she wants to go to the sea or get a gift, an iPhone, that's the best. But alas, it's hard to say. Anything about the dirty, greasy dishes in the sink, an intermediate exit. But dear, you're already perfect. Women's psychology, This can be called a vaccination against a critical view of oneself. The only critical remarks about oneself in female psychology that I have heard are excess weight, self-sacrifice, and excessive modesty. In everything else, you're perfect. Well, as for the fact that only bad reviews come from close ones, my psychologist said not to pay attention. Then it even says psychology suggests putting yourself first, putting yourself in first place. Well, and the naive guy thinks, okay, I'll at least be in second place. But unfortunately, second place doesn't exist. You're simply given the vacancy of serving the emotional state of women, meaning somewhere you'll need to pump the noodles. Somewhere you need to flirt with a man on the side. Endure that you noticed nothing. A little later, you'll get used to it. Psychology literally calls for women to radiate happiness, and when these enlightened women meet somewhere, maybe you've seen such gatherings, they always try to smile, always. The more the better, even when they talk, even when it's uncomfortable, even when they argue, they smile. And do you know why? Because if you're not smiling, you're a loser. And have you noticed a pattern that as soon as a wife starts to get involved with psychology, she immediately the next day runs to the beauty salon or to the gym? And if you ask her, why are you doing this and for whom? Well, the psychologist strictly told you that you shouldn't depend on the opinions of others. Well, she'll say, actually, I'm doing it for myself so my reflection in the mirror pleases me. Reflection in the mirror, you say? Well, then let's say you will wear bright makeup, beautiful clothes, and wear heels on the kitchen floor. Well, there are more mirrors at home than outside, but unfortunately, for some mysterious reason, your wife won't be too happy with such a suggestion. She will definitely discuss it in her next session. Psychology turns a woman into a fierce bitch. If a psychologist has already gotten deeply into psychology, it will be very difficult for her to retain her humanity. Because humanity, in my opinion, is the habit of doing good things because it's necessary, or the refusal to do bad things because it's wrong. And secular psychology places something else first. It puts servicing such human interests, desires, feelings, sensations first. For example, if a wife falls in love with another, there is no argument in psychology that could stop the wife at all. I've had many clients whose wives cheated, and they went to the therapist together. The man, well, he initially expects that, well, probably, now at least she will admit some minor mistake. Because I don't drink, I don't hit, I work, I treat her well. But instead, the psychologist for some reason starts to look for mistakes in the husband's behaviour. Do you know why this happens? Let me explain briefly. Look, for a normal person, gratitude is an action. For example, I can't change my attitude towards my husband just because he treats me well. And also he has been with me for 5 years. But for psychology, gratitude is just an emotion that doesn't oblige anything. Meaning that a wife can simply thank you for these 5 years, say thank you for the experience, and then go sleep with the neighbour. Yes, psychology suggests being like a quick test for adequacy, kinder to yourself. Are you really asserting this seriously? Each of us is, well, just maximally selfish, and those who deny it are the most selfish of all. And we can do a simple experiment. Are you personally ready to give your life so that 500,000 people are healed right now, but you die and save 500,000 people? Those who honestly answer this question, when they picture this situation, they will probably say, well, we value our life, our miserable life, absolutely unremarkable in any way, more than 500,000 other lives. Maybe we suffer because of this. Maybe we suffer from selfishness, that we only love ourselves and pity ourselves. But unfortunately, internet psychology will never tell you about this. But then it is also said that you can do something for others only from a feeling of fullness, not from sacrifice. Well, give what's not a big deal, what's lying around, what you don't need, the hostess, well, let the chicken eat, and you gnaw on the bones under the table. When a mother with a child sleeps for 2 hours throughout the night, that's probably the exact feeling of fullness that pulls her out of bed in the morning. In general, If you plan to use the words duty and obligation in the presence of a psychologist, you better take ammonia with you, because after such strong words, sometimes the logic just loses consciousness. Sometimes she frowns. I want to emphasize in this video the conclusions. We are talking specifically about popular psychology because 99% of women have access only to such information. Well, God bless you if you're lucky with a specialist, if you have an urgent need for it, but to be ready to share something personal and intimate with someone, you'd like to see not only diplomas. That means that the person at least has a conscience, and it's pretty difficult to check. Well, when you take your computer for repairs, you don't care who's doing it, whether he's a good person or not. But a psychologist, he can directly affect your conscience or the conscience of your wife. If your wife is looking at someone or turns to someone, he can silence her conscience or make her reflect. Someone will probably write in the comments, "Masim, psychologists are about something else." Yes, no one cares that it's about something else. No one cares. The book from 1958, no one will open it. Secular psychology is a new product, and the potential audience, the already existing audience, is millions of people. These are millions of women, and it is only gaining popularity. Already, every dog knows what personal boundaries are and how to bark correctly to protect them. By the way, from the point of view of another psychology, a suitable girl is a complex person, full of phobias, fears. This cautious, attentive attitude towards a man, the fear of upsetting him, is considered a pathology, a deviation, a disgusting deviation from the norm. But the question arises, okay, this is a pathology and a positive quality. Well, she has kindness, she has sympathy, loyalty, the desire to help others. Where does this come from? Is it also a consequence of some complexes, or what could this be a side effect of neurosis? Well, it's just like, well, how can these things be said seriously? In general, if a wife, girl, woman starts to get interested in psychology, then nothing good is to be expected.